This is going to be a build of how I built this generator for a customer. It's going to be a detailed build, including wiring. I will not show you exactly how I'm wiring, but I'll show you how it is wired up once I get the wires done. And it has two 120 volt outlets on the outside. The inverter on the inside has three additional outlets on the side of it here, and one USB port. It has two USB ports on this side and a 12 volt outlet, cigarette bolt outlet. It's got a Bluetooth module on the outside so that you can check the status of your solar panels. It's got a outside switch and a main power switch to turn everything on and off. You charge it through solar right here. It's got fans on it, an intake and an extake fan. This is for charging it with your household charger. And it's also got LED lights on the front and side. Please enjoy the video. If you like it, please like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching. I started this build using a Craftsman toolbox that's on wheels, and I've already populated it with wood, 3/4 inch wood at the bottom, and this is where the battery will sit and it will lay on its side. This is a solar charger where it will sit, and then I have a platform that I made that goes on top of this for the inverter and any other accessories that I add to it. Okay, I've made this platform to set over the battery. This is to set the inverter and then anything else that I want on here. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and place the parts in here to see how they're going to fit and see where I can put all of the parts. That's the where the solar charge controller will go. It's got to be away from here because of the platform that I built. The inverter will set right here and the door closes with no problem. I've got two 40mm fans. They'll want to go on one side, want to go on the other. They will face opposite directions. One will suck air in and the other will suck air out to keep everything cool. I will also have a thermostat in here to, when it gets too hot, it will kick on. I'm going to put these on the end. I've got two GFCIs that I'm going to place on the very front of this. My main power switch will go right here in this corner. It will go from the switch to the inverter. So that will be where the main power will come on at. I'm going to place a fuse panel right here for my lights and any other accessories I may want to put on here. This is my 100 amp fuse that I'll be using. That'll be for the main power. Okay, after making sure everything fits in here, the large components, now I want to start cutting the holes in the exterior. I made sure that the fan had enough clearance here to be mounted here, and then it's got enough clearance here. Everything else has plenty of clearance around it. So now I can start populating it. These are some of the tools I use to cut the holes into the case. I have a 4 3/8 inch hole saw, a step down drill bit. I use a multi-tool to cut for the electrical outlets, any straight cuts. And then you can also use a jigsaw for most any of these cuts. I begin with a 4-inch saw to cut the hole for the fan. I had to start by changing out the batteries in my drill. Then all you do is pull the tape off and clean them up. Next, I drill the holes for the screws to hold the fan in. Okay, I've already done all the cutouts and all the exterior stuff that I need to do. When I did this, I made sure that everything will fit. This right here, I could have raised just a little bit more to clear the battery a little bit better, but it still does clear. And this is one I'm building for a customer, so it has some things on it that you would not necessarily want. I've added LED lights to the side and one to the front. On this side, I've put the outlet for the 220, and this is your AC plug for charging. This is the fan. I put a screen over the top of it. Let's see if we can get some light in there and show you. That's the fan with a cover on it. So when it's closed, you can't actually hardly see it. This is your main power switch. I put a switch over here on the front for the lights. And on this side, I have the plug for the solar charge controller and another fan. And this is what I've done on the inside. I went ahead and put some ends on the solar charge controller to the plug for it, so it will plug in easily. This I will plug into the power strip on the solar charger so that it'll be hot whenever the sun's out, no matter what. This is the one that the AC charger that will go directly to the battery. And then I've got the wires for the lights up here. Both of them, they'll be wired to this one switch. And I will start populating everything in the next part of this video. And I'll show the actual wiring, how I wire everything up. Okay, one thing I did forget to add that I just added was the switch for the solar charge controller. I put it on the outside of the box. So basically you'll never have to open up the inside unless there's a problem. Okay, what I've done is to the solar charge controller, I put the PV input into the positive and negative. This is where the solar panels come in. Then I've hooked battery leads to the battery connection, positive and negative. Then all of these outlets for the 12-volt system on the front, I've hooked into the load positive and load negative. Now I'm going to screw it in. Okay, what I've done is added a fuse, an inline fuse here, to the solar charge controller so that it doesn't get input too high a voltage for the controller. It's rated at 30 amps, so this is a 30 amp fuse. It will kick out when it gets over 30. So you do that for safety reasons. I've also added the plugs to go to the battery. I have the plugs from the AC charging port, and I have the plugs for the accessory, the 12-volt accessory fuse block. Okay, now I'm going to add the battery. You want to put the main power for the inverter below. Then everything else goes on top of it. Now you want to do the same thing to the negative side. I did forget one of the plugs, so I have to undo this again and add the plug to it. You don't want to over tighten it, you just want to get it snug. That's what the lock washers are for. And I also put, because this is going to be live after this, I put a piece of shrink wrap over the top of the positive terminal so that nothing will short out. Okay, now we can turn this sideways. Okay, now it's time to put your platform in. You don't want it to set on any of these wires. Also, when you're putting this in here, watch the screws that are sticking out. It gets a little bloody. Now comes the inverter. You'll make sure and leave enough room that if you need to plug anything in, you can do it down here on the end. It has 3 plugs on this Renogy that you can use, and a USB. When you're screwing this in, you definitely do not want to use long screws. This is a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, so I'm using 3/4 inch screws. Okay, now everything else where it goes. I'm not going to hook this up yet. I'm going to get everything else ready to hook up. You have to be really careful when doing this because you don't want any of these washers or anything to drop down in these holes, and then you have to redo everything. Take it all out and redo it. That's not a lot of fun. This is my problem. I mounted a Giandel switch for the inverter into the front of this panel, and it should have been this switch. So now I have to switch them around. Luckily, the hole is still the right size. So all I have to do is cut it a little bit bigger, so it will still work. That's what happens when you have a lot of parts for different generators laying all over the place. I should be a little bit more organized. I got this all switched out. It fits good now. And I did have to put a little sealer in the top of it. You know, I just used silicone. It was just a little hairline gap, but I don't want any water to get into it. More than likely under the ridge, it won't get water anyway, but if it's blowing or something, this I am making so he can use it outside if he needs to. And also, because I make these to sell, I want to make them as neat as possible. These, the switches for the inverters come with a massive cord. This one just happens to be 20 some odd feet long. So I am going to take and cut this, and I have a splice that I can put new splicers, new end pieces on. So I can shorten this to about probably 18 inches or so. I don't want to make it too short, but this just happens to be a 6-prong, and I have a new 6-prong to put on it. Okay, the other thing I didn't show you is a ferrule tool that I use. It puts these ferrules onto a wire. I'll show you real quick how it works. Take and strip about probably 5/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, off of the end. Actually, a little bit more than that even. Twist the wire really good. This is 14 gauge wire, so you want to use a 14 gauge ferrule, and then just twist it into it. And it should just barely poke out of the end. Then you just stick it in this hole and squeeze. And there you have a good connection. Okay, I've connected a extension cord to this is a 12 gauge extension cord to the main outlet here, leaving 3 outlets available. This will power the 2 outlets that I have on the outside. I have now added my outlet here, and then I daisy chained it over to this outlet, and I put it on this side. Okay, and now I'm going to be hooking up the 2 lights to the switch, and then I'll be running it down here to the 12-volt power supply, and I'll be using these Wago connectors. It makes it a lot quicker and easier to install these. Okay, on these Wago connectors, what you do is raise these up. This has 3. One for the positive here, right there, and one for this positive here. Okay, I've cut my positive and negative lead, red and black, and now I've got 2-port Wago connectors to connect the positives and negatives to the fuse block down here. Okay, I've added some terminal ends to this to connect it to the fuse block. Okay, because this wire is so thin, I've cut it back quite a ways, and I'm going to fold it over a couple of times so that the Wago connector can attach to it. Okay, then I connect them to the Wago. Alright, on the other side here, I have connected the fan to the Wago connectors. And then the Wago connectors I've connected to the thermostat. And then from there I go to the fuse block. And then this, I just have to peel the sticky tape off and stick it on there. And then I'll plug in the thermostat. Okay, this concludes the build of this solar power box. I'm calling it a power box because people get upset when you say it's a generator. But it virtually is, because you can recharge it by solar, you know, same as you can recharge a gas generator with gas. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for future notifications when I build another one or do some woodworking.